What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update, and quite a bit to get through today, so let's get straight into it, starting with a manager target update by Ali Gold. And he says Daniel Levy is now set to speak to potential managerial candidates already in jobs after the club drew up its shortlist. Paratici had Luis Enrique, Nagelsmann, De Zerbi and Sergio Conceição on his list of candidates. The post-Paratici shortlist includes Nagelsmann, Arne Slot, Vincent Kompany, Xabi Alonso, Ruben Amorim and Ange Postecoglou. So only a few names on that list.
Yeah, not bad. Look, to be honest, I actually like the list, to be honest. I think the list is much better than what it was during Paratici's era. I think it's much more in line with what we want, and I'm happy that they've met. I'm not sure they've learned from their mistakes, but I'm happy that they're kind of following through with what Levy said 2 years ago, probably 2 years too late. So I'm glad that these are the options, because to be honest, any one of those options I'm not too unhappy with.
Yeah, I'd be happy with all, and probably like Ange Postecoglou would be probably bottom of the list, but I think it'd still be an exciting appointment, to be honest. But obviously his experience of just in the Scottish League and out in Australia is not the biggest sample size to go by. But the other ones I think are definitely very exciting appointments. But look, let's speak about the number one target, and that is Julian Nagelsmann, as Florian Plettenberg saying that Tottenham are pushing more and more for Nagelsmann. Further talks took place in the last days. Spurs are a serious option for him. His opinion that Spurs are a big club with big potential. He wants to know how much power does he get in transfers and will take his time with a decision.
Yeah, and I think that's probably right. I think he shouldn't rush into anything because he has to make sure it's right for him, and that makes absolute sense. And even if it takes till the summer, I think if he's a serious option, we should be doing everything we can to be convincing him to come here, even if it is waiting till now. I don't think we should be rushing a decision just to get someone in. I think we should be waiting for the right person, and hopefully we can do that. And maybe the next update is in a view of that.
Yeah, I really hope so, because this next update is the one that people should get excited about if it does progress. But the next update is regarding sporting director Johannes Spors. Florian Plettenberg says that Johannes Spors is one of a number of sporting directors Tottenham are looking at. Spors is a global sporting director for a number of clubs, including Hertha Berlin, Genoa, Standard Liège and Melbourne Victory. There was contact in the last weeks, but no concrete negotiations yet. And it also makes sense because he has worked with Julian Nagelsmann on a number of occasions in the past.
Yeah, he worked with him at Hoffenheim. I think he had left by the time he had joined Leipzig, but at Hoffenheim I think Nagelsmann was a coach. I don't think he was a manager, but he was a coach there, so they probably know each other. And I'm sure Nagelsmann knows him during his career in Germany. So I think it makes sense as well. He's had some pretty good success in his previous jobs. Right now, I'm not really sure how a globing sporting director works for multiple different clubs. I'm not sure how that works, but it clearly shows he must be working very hard. If he's working for 5 different clubs, I don't know how he's getting on. But also, he has a link with Scott Munn as well, having worked with in Melbourne. So apparently they know each other and there are links there. So this one definitely hopefully has some legs. And if this goes some way to maybe convincing Nagelsmann to come, that'll be very, very exciting. And you've got to think there's too many coincidences about them working with each other beforehand for it just to not be related.
Yeah, seems that way. And maybe that brings kind of new thinking as to why Scott Munn and Daniel Levy were travelling out to Germany together. Maybe it was to speak to him.
Maybe, and that could very well be. I mean, I don't know if he's in Germany right now, but this is something that for sure would. When I'm talking about Nagelsmann coming to Tottenham and asking Tottenham what is their strategy, what's their plan on the footballing wise, getting someone like him through the door goes a long way to answering those questions. And all of a sudden, maybe Nagelsmann can see a project here, and then maybe that can convince him to come.
Yeah, let's hope so. But let's move on. Let's talk about Xabi Alonso now. We brought you yesterday that Xabi Alonso is emerging as a target for Tottenham Hotspur, and there has been some quotes for him regarding his future. And he says, "I've been in football for many years. Rumours are normal, but we still have a lot to achieve. That's why my head is 100% here for the last few months, and my head is also 100% here for next season."
Yeah, he is going to say that, isn't he? Until anything concrete with Tottenham's happening, he's always going to pour cold water on it. I think that's the right thing to do. That's the right attitude. I don't think he can think about Tottenham unless there's a serious offer on the table and things are progressing. He's always going to say that he's staying. He's only been there 8 months as well, so it's only right. It's only fair to the club he's at.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, let's talk about some player transfers or potential transfers. And the first up is Fikayo Tomori of AC Milan. L'Equipe are reporting that Tomori is being targeted by Tottenham to reinforce the team's defence in the upcoming transfer window. And I, for one, would be massively in favour for this one.
Yeah, I really like Tomori. For one reason or another, he doesn't get enough of a look in for England, but I think he's been one of England's best centre-backs for a couple of years now, especially since moving to AC Milan. He's really kind of grown into himself. He's found himself out in Italy, and maybe it's a good time for him to come back to England, and I think he could definitely be an option for us, 100%. He's at a good age. He has good experience. He's a title winner as well, and I think he's got good quality, and I think he's good on the ball as well. He's a strong centre-back, so I don't see any problem with that. Just depends who the new manager is, obviously.
Yeah. I think him and Romero could work an absolute charm together at the back. They both have different attributes, don't they? And I think they can both complement each other really well. Let's move on. Let's talk about Tammy Abraham. Calcio Mercato says that Tottenham have had scouts watch Tammy Abraham score against AC Milan at the Stadio Olimpico. AC Milan have set a €40 million asking price on the striker. I mean, if we're going to sell Harry Kane and bring in Tammy Abraham, we may as well just quit now.
Well, I don't want him to replace Harry Kane for sure. I actually think that Tammy Abraham's underrated. I think he's had a decent time at Roma, albeit this season not quite being as good as he was last season. But I actually like Tammy Abraham. I think he's got good hold-up play. He's got decent pace, decent finisher as well. But I think he's more of a guy I would have as a backup to a star striker rather than someone who's starting week in, week out for us. I don't think he's quite good enough to lead the line for Tottenham right now. So on that basis, I wouldn't want to see us sell Harry Kane and sign Tammy Abraham. But if we sign him while Kane is here, I'm not that against it, to be honest. I actually think he's underrated.
I'd actually prefer to have Richarlison as our backup striker than have Tammy Abraham. I think spending 40 million on Tammy Abraham, I think it can be spent much better elsewhere, to be honest. I mean, I do like Tammy Abraham, but I don't like him as much to say I want him at my club. I think that he always starts well and then kind of goes off the boil, to be honest. And I think that he needs to go to someone a bit lower down than Tottenham, start week in, week out in the Premier League and see what he's about there, because I think he's gone off the boil a bit now at Roma. I
agree with that, and I think he needs to be at a place where he's the number one guy, and I don't think that's going to happen at Tottenham.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Harvey Barnes now. The Mail are reporting that Harvey Barnes could leave Leicester this summer amid interest from Tottenham and Aston Villa, with the winger yet to discuss extension on the current contract that runs until 2025. Tottenham are believed to be watching developments around Harvey Barnes very closely. The 25-year-old was valued at £60 million when Newcastle inquired for him this time last year.
Yeah, it makes sense. If Leicester definitely get relegated, 100% he's going. But as well, Leicester have been struggling a lot this season, and he probably feels like he could be playing for a better club, looking for different things, albeit they were in European challenges while he's been at the club, but while things have gone this way, I think it makes sense he's probably looking elsewhere. And I really like Harvey Barnes. I actually think he's had a pretty decent season, all things considered. And would I want him at Tottenham? Not for 50 or 60 million. I think it's one of those where only if it's like a decent deal would I considering it. Again, as I've said like a number of times already, you're paying a very high English tax for him, because you could probably get a player for half the price what you'll pay for Harvey Barnes, who's similar quality. Not to say Harvey Barnes is bad or tall. I think he's a good player, but you could probably go to Italy or France or Spain, pay 30 million and get a player who's probably as good as him. Yeah, and that's the reality.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. And when you're looking at signing a player for that much money in that position as well, where we've got Heung-min Son, you need to be looking at the heir to Heung-min Son's throne, and that's not Harvey Barnes, in my opinion. And I think that we need to buy even a younger player that has much more scope for improvement and a much higher ceiling than Harvey Barnes, albeit that, look, he is a very good player, but I don't think he's ever going to reach the levels of what Son ever reached.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he's a good Premier League winger, though. But yeah. I wouldn't be upset if we signed him, but I just don't think it makes sense.
Yeah. Next up, let's have an injury update for Rodrigo Bentancur. Charlie Eccleshare claims that Bentancur will not return until November. And if he's not returning to November, imagine when he's actually going to be match fit. You're probably looking at more closer to December. That is really bad news.
And then also, it takes a long time to get back to your best as well. Apparently, it takes that injury can take a year to get playing again, and then a year to get back to where you were before the injury. So it's going to be a long process for Bentancur. Very rarely, even Van Dijk is a bit of a freak. The fact that he came back last season was so good. This season maybe he's suffering for it, but I think it's going to be, you can't really put that pressure on Bentancur to be as good as he was straight away, even in November. We heard, when he got injured that he was going to be out for at least 8-9 months. That looks like it's going to be the case. So it's devastating. Hopefully we sign a centre mid who's got that kind of quality that he has, but they're not easy to find, are they?
No, definitely not. And it's such a kick in the teeth, isn't it? Because we signed him in January. He's just been getting better and better and better since then. We saw him at the World Cup, how good he's been. He's been one of our best, if not our best player this season when he has been fit. And then this happens and he's out for a year. And I mean, it's so hard to take, isn't it?
It's gutting. And not only was he getting better quality-wise, but also like in terms of, I felt like in the team he was becoming more of a leader, he was taking more responsibility. And now then that happened. So absolutely gutting for him. But hopefully when he does come back, hopefully it doesn't take him too long to get back to that level.
It's actually interesting because I was on David Harris's stream a few months ago. We were talking about who should be the captain. They were saying Hugo Lloris shouldn't be captain anymore, and they don't see those leadership qualities in Harry Kane. And I actually brought up that maybe Rodrigo Bentancur was actually the next in line, and I can see the leadership qualities in there. And actually, quality player-wise, he is one of the best in the squad as well. But this ain't probably going to happen.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think you probably got a good shot in terms of who's remaining in the squad. I do think it'll be Harry Kane, but in terms of that, after him, yeah, you're struggling for real leaders. I think
like Bentancur.
Yeah, and I just feel like Bentancur might be a better fit, but I don't know.
Next up, another injury update, this time on Hugo Lloris. Dan Kilpatrick says that Hugo is considered a major doubt to play again for Tottenham this season. His final appearance for the club may well have been the 6-1 defeat to Newcastle, and also Ryan Mason confirmed that he probably won't be playing again this season.
Definitely, I think it is.
Well, definitely won't be playing again this season. But do you think that 6-1 defeat will be the last we've seen of Hugo?
I think there's a very good chance of it, to be honest. I guess, obviously, we're definitely looking at keeper this summer, that's for sure. We know that. So whether Lloris wants to stay here and play second fiddle and just see out the last year of his contract, or does he want to find maybe a club in France and maybe has to be a mid-table or bottom half team in France and just be number one for the remainder of his career? I probably would go that way. I think that probably makes more sense for him rather than just sitting on the bench. To be honest, I wouldn't be, if he wants to be here and be number two, I think he's been a good servant for us. He's had a terrible last year for Tottenham, so I actually trust Forster at this point more than Lloris from what I've seen.
Yeah.
But depends if anyone comes in for him. It depends what he wants to do. Look, given the service he's given us, I don't care. I don't really mind too much if he is number two, but I would rather just go our separate ways at this point, just due to he keeps making really bad mistakes. I can't really trust him to come in at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it suits everyone for him just to leave this summer. I think there should be takers for him in France, maybe not the top clubs, but maybe teams battling for Europe or in mid-table in the French league. And I think we should just let him go on a free. And, he's on big wages here. He's on really big wages here. So to get those wages off the books this summer, I think will be a big thing for us. And to keep Forster on as sub, I think that's the best way to go, to be honest. So thanks for the memories, but hopefully let's say goodbye this summer. But let's move on and let's talk about Alfie Devine, the last update. And that's from Charlie Eccleshare. And he says Alfie Devine is expected to be loaned out to a Championship or League One club next season. And that should be exciting to watch.
Hopefully he gets a loan move, because that could do him the world of good. Because look, he seems to be, from what I'm reading, pretty much man of the match whenever he plays in the youth games. Apparently he seems to be head and shoulders above the other players. So I think if you stay in that, if you're too good for that level and you stay there too long, I think you do stagnate sometimes. I think we've seen it with a few players. So I do think he needs that first team football where there's real stakes in lower league football to really develop as a player and move on. And look, he's a super exciting talent. Even people talking about him giving a chance in the first team, but I definitely think a loan move should be the next course of action to enhance his development 100%.
Yeah, the fact of the matter, I mean, he came in and had a first-team appearance when he was 16, albeit it was against Marine, but to get a goal at that age in first-team football is astonishing, really. But that is our Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding any of the news stories we brought to you today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.